Thank you. Thank you all for coming. It's not an easy night to get around, and it's impressive that you came out, especially our college students. And my goal is to get you out of here by the fourth quarter.
So you could have got Pete Jackson.
It's a complicated issue, and that's the goal tonight. And to me, I wanted to set this issue in the state of Idaho because that's where we live, and that's where I represent you guys, and I represent this, and I work in the legislature in the state of Idaho. The state of Idaho has an important decision facing it in the context of the Affordable Care Act. There were two issues that the state has had to act on. The first was a choice whether to have a state-based exchange or a federal exchange. And I hope you all paid attention because last session that occupied the whole legislative session. It was a bitter issue. It was decided to have a state exchange. The governor led that, and it happened. Now, the actual cost to the citizens of Idaho and how that affected the citizens of Idaho is pretty minimal. But there's another choice that the state of Idaho is having to face right now, and that has to do with whether people who are uninsured, who live below the poverty level, 100% of the federal poverty level, will be eligible for Medicaid or not. The Affordable Care Act, when it was written, said that's what states would do. If you think about the Affordable Care Act, it was a compromise. It was a compromise between the government and private insurance, so that rules were placed on private insurance so that they had to change some of the things they were doing. But the government, through the individual mandate, was bringing a lot of customers to insurance. At the same time, the government was trying to make insurance affordable. And it did that through the health insurance exchange for individual and small group policies, supporting people buying insurance that didn't get it through their employer. There were income tax supports and subsidies for premiums. But there's folks who are pretty poor, and they aren't going to be either paying income tax, making income tax, and the private insurance companies said, this isn't the population that we're all that eager to serve. So the Affordable Care Act said, we're going to expand Medicaid to serve this population. In the Act, Medicaid is a state-run program, and I'm going to show you a slide that demonstrates eligibility for Medicaid in the state of Idaho now. If you think the Affordable Care Act is complicated and has a lot of misunderstanding associated with it, Medicaid has even more. Medicaid has been in existence for 40 years, and people still don't understand who's eligible and who's not. And it varies from state to state. So I'd like to show you a graphic about eligibility for Medicaid in the state of Idaho, and also eligibility for participation in the health insurance exchange. The goal of the Affordable Care Act is to have everybody insured. And you guys should think about whether that is something you support or not. We heard that people on Hollywood Boulevard thought that was a good idea. But I want you to think about that. Not everybody agrees that that's the appropriate way to go. But that is the assumption of the Affordable Care Act. It's passed Congress, it's signed by the President, it's upheld by the Supreme Court, that the individual mandate is constitutional. Now you may disagree with that, but that's been upheld. And so, are we going to get everybody insured with health insurance? We could talk about the cost of health care. We can talk about changing the cost of health care. But tonight, what I want to talk about mostly has to do with insurance. And the cost of insurance is part of this issue. So there's the cost of health care, and there's the cost of insurance. In other words, the cost of the care that we get, and the cost of how we pay for that care. So let me go to my graphics, and I'll pull up a slide about eligibility for Medicaid in the state of Idaho. If you have it, Okay, I'll hurry up. So this is eligibility today. If you look, adults with children in the bottom left are eligible at 20% of the federal poverty level.
20%?
20. That's 18,000 people in the state of Idaho. If you look at adults without children, they are not eligible for Medicaid. The people that are eligible mostly are children under 6, children up to 18 actually, pregnant women. That is 80% of the people enrolled in Medicaid in the state of Idaho. That is 20 to 30% of the cost of Medicaid in the state of Idaho. Adults over 65, people with disabilities, and people with severe disabilities have greater eligibility, and that is 80% of the cost of Medicaid in the state of Idaho. It's a very small group. It's 20% of the people enrolled. So there's your 80-20. Now, if we do not expand eligibility in Medicaid, the uncovered folks shrinks, because these folks here, from 100% of the federal poverty level up to 400%, are eligible to participate in the health insurance exchange. If you earn 100% of the federal poverty level and you're a single adult, that's around $14,000 a year. If you go online, go to buy insurance on the state exchange, you will receive premium supports based on your zip code, lots of different issues. It's a complicated factor, and you got to get that right. But you'll end up paying a very affordable rate, and you can go online now and see what that would be. If you are less than 100% of the federal poverty level in the state of Idaho, you are not eligible for anything. That is, if the eligibility for Medicaid is not changed.
And keep going. I would, do you ladies mind, or gentlemen, I would like Dr. Schmidt to make his presentation. I don't care if it's more than 10 minutes, because that's what we really were doing tonight.
So I'm going to just briefly, so this is the policy question facing the policy makers, the governor, the legislature in the state of Idaho. So that's the policy choice. The question, we'll get to question.
Dr. Schmidt, could you use the microphone?
Yes. I hope I don't have to change the slide. That's the policy question. So now the politics. The exchange debate was very difficult last session. I hope you guys know the makeup of the legislature in the state of Idaho and our elected officials. They're 80-20 Republican. There's the 80-20 rule. And the Republican Party is very split about whether we should do anything about health care. The exchange passed the House. It passed the Senate easily twice. It passed the House with not a majority of Republican votes. So Republicans who are looking at this, there's a man who has filed to run against the governor based on this very issue of the exchange vote, saying Governor Otter sold out the state of Idaho to Obamacare. And so this issue will not come up this legislative session. The Republican Party has no interest in promoting this issue for our state. It is very contentious, and that's what I've been told. I've had many discussions with legislators, and they cannot see that this will come forward. Now, what that means, the eligibility for Medicaid starts January 2014. 100% of the newly eligible costs are paid for by the federal government. if you look up there where it says cat dollars, I sit on the cat board for the state of Idaho. We pay money straight from county taxes, straight from the general fund to the tune of $70 million a year for the uninsured who have had catastrophic health costs, are declared indigent by their county commissioners, and are then eligible for payment for their medical bills from Idaho taxes. On the governor's work group, we studied this. 99% of those people would be eligible for Medicaid coverage or involved in the state insurance exchange, and that cost would disappear. But that's not going to happen this year. And so that would save $40 million for each county's property tax, another $30 million for the general fund. And I can think of ways we could use that. So I'm going to quit now. I have other slides, I have other information, but this is the situation we're at. The policy issue, and to me, to get informed on this and to talk to your elected officials and to your state officials and do what you can about expressing your opinions. Now, not everybody agrees with me that this is a good idea to do. The governor's work group, believe it or not, I was the only elected Democrat on there, but it was a unanimous support for it. We sent that letter to the governor twice. So there are people who support this. Thank you.